Hey there. I'm just going to make this really, really quick, but I had to make this video. So I was just recently reading Revelations, and I always have the hardest time in this book because it makes me realize that there's so much about God that I just don't know. He is a mystery. I mean, there's so much to this mystery that he is that, every time I read Revelations, I just start asking more questions and more questions and more questions because I just want to understand. And sometimes I feel like maybe there's things that I just won't understand until I leave here, and I go back to be with God, and then I'll start to understand the order of things. But as I was sitting there reading and just asking him questions and just asking, it was like, it's a question that a lot of people have had. It's that question of, well, you're God, and if everything that you do works for our good, if everything that happens to us can work for our good, how does all of this work? You can do whatever you want to do. You can, there's things that are going on today. There, children being, raped, and all kinds of just wicked, corrupt stuff that is going on in the world today. And I'm like, the one thing that people ask you, God, is, and even I wonder, why don't you stop it? Why are these things allowed to happen? And I know that you work things out for our good, but what about why do they get to happen in the first place? You know what I mean? And so then I'm just thinking, and I'm asking him, I'm like, I know that you're good. I know that you are good, that nothing bad can come out of you, but you can allow bad things to happen. You can allow situations to happen, and you're not bad, but you have the power to allow bad things to happen. And essentially you have the power to stop bad things from happening. And I was just curious, I was just wondering. And as I was asking and seeking and just reading, and it was like I started to understand a little bit more. He started to help me to understand this thing just a little bit more. And all I know is he was like, you don't know what happened in this world before you. You don't know all the things that have happened in this world before you. And you don't know all the things that's going to happen in this world after you. But there's an order to things. The root of us, of what we do, of how we behave, of all these tragedies that are happening in the world, the root of them is spiritual. So there is this spiritual realm where spiritually things can wreak havoc on us physically, in our physical lives. The things that we see going on in this world today are a result of some sort of battle or thing that's happening on the spiritual level. And him telling me, you don't know what happened prior to you. You don't know what's going to happen before you. All you know is what's happening because of you right now. All you know is that I've given you free will. And then I started thinking, well, man, I know that I've been given free will. I've been given the choice of life and prosperity or death and destruction. I know that God has called me. I know that he has made himself known to me. I know that he is real. So I have been given a choice. And let's just say I decided not to go with life and prosperity, and not to go with the life that God sent me down here for in the first place, not to go with fulfilling my purpose in this world. What if I decided not to do that, right? And I decided, you know what? It's too hard. I can't do it. I don't understand. I don't want to do it. Sorry, I'm cooking. But what if I decided that, right? What if? So, whatever generational curses and things that happened prior to me in my bloodline and my family, I don't know what those things are. But had I not answered God's call and said, okay, I will do what you've called me here to do, who knows how that would have affected the generations and generations after me. I'm here in this world, in this family, in this place, right here, right now, talking to you. I'm here for such a time as this. If I weren't, he would have either had me here long before now or sometime after now. But he has me here now. And if I didn't answer his call, who knows what kind of curses. I mean, I have an idea because I know my life. I know a little bit about my family, our history, and things like that. So those same sort of curses would just extend into more generations and more generations. And who knows how long before another person in our bloodline comes along who probably was supposed to do something else. But now they have to not only do that something else, but break these curses, right? Something that I was supposed to do from my line. I was supposed to cut it off, right? That was my responsibility. That is why God put me here. That was my job, right? So you don't know what kind of curses and things that are in a person's family line prior to them, right? You just don't know. And so, but one thing that we do know is that every single one of us are given the choice of free will. Each and every one of us. So the people prior to us were given the choice of free will. Can I say every single one of them accepted life and prosperity, accepted Jesus as their Savior? Can I say that they did that? No. A lot of people literally probably didn't do the work, probably didn't go through any healing processes, probably didn't accept Christ, probably ignored his call, probably blatantly just rejected God, probably just decided that they wanted to have fun, right? And do what they wanted to do. And so as a result of that, they have generations of kids and families and people who are suffering in their bloodline and in their families because of something that they did then. And so then I thought about it. I said, but you know, it's interesting because there is an order to things. Even God submits to the order of things. We know that he is God and he can do whatever it is that he wants to do. But the reality is a lot of the things that he wants done or should be done on this earth, he can't do without willing people to operate on his behalf, because he's coming from the spiritual. So if I say, God, you can use me how you see fit, then now I'm a willing vessel. Now I'm willing, and now he can accomplish things through me. He can use me to break a lot of the curses, a lot of the chains, a lot of the things, the bondage and all these things that maybe occurred prior to me and my family, right? Whether it's poverty and lack, whether it's how can I put it? You know, there's children, there's incest, all kinds of things, right? I mean, there's so much stuff that we could say, but I we'll just keep it at that as just for an example. But you know, there's so many things that could have that could still be here today if I had not chosen to follow God. And then that stuff would have kept going. So he submits to order, just like he expects us to submit to order. It is just order that if you choose God, if you choose life and prosperity, you have a different life than if you chose death and destruction. Let me put it this way. It is just a difference between someone submitting to God and saying, I want to follow you, and someone saying, I want nothing to do with you. It's a difference between these two people. Say we have two people. They're going to have two totally different lives. You may not always see it on the outside, but trust me, inside, the way that they see life, the way that they view life, the way that they live life, the way that they operate, it's just going to be two totally different lives, right? So there's an order to things. God is not he's not this dictative God. That's not him. He wants willing people, people who are willing to listen to him, people who are willing to submit to him, people who are willing to do the work that he's called them to do, people who are willing to live out their purpose. He needs willing vessels. He is not trying to strong arm you into following his will. That's not it. He gives you a choice. He wants you to want him. He wants you to want to spend time with him. He wants you to want to live your life for him. He wants you to want these things. He doesn't want to force you into these things. And sometimes people think that God's trying to force them into these things because they understand what he's saying in his word is that there's just an order. And the order is if you go this life, then that's what you have. But a lot of times people want to blame God and say, oh, God's punishing me and this and that. And that's just not the case. The case is you have a choice of free will. It is written. What choice did you choose? Do you see what I mean? And so there's an order to things, and God is not trying to violate the order. Even he submits to the order of things. He submits to the order of free will. He submits to that. So if there is a curse on this family and these children are suffering and this and that, and yeah, it hurts. It hurts God to see. But it is the order of things. And the people before that child, before that generation, before that issue, generations and generations prior to them have all been told about free will. They all have been told about God. They all know. They all have been given a choice. Right? I mean, they have. I believe they have. And so, again, he is not trying to violate the order of things. He submits to the order of things. Now, can a child growing up who may have been abused or molested by a family member grow up and grow and go into a positive direction in their life and then change the whole game for them and the rest of the generations after them in that particular area or with that particular curse or who knows how many? But could they do that? Absolutely, because that person, if they choose the will of God, they will be given a choice as well. And if they choose God, if they choose life and prosperity, then at that moment God will take everything that they went through and turn it into a good. And then they will it'll be like they will be able to take that thing that happened to them when they were a kid or when they were a young adult. They would be able to take that, right, and use it as a stepping stone. And then before you know it, now they're healed and they're reaching back and healing others. And then it breaks it. These types of things are not going into that person's children. And then that person's children's children, right? It's done. It's in the past. It's forgotten about. That person has moved on, has gotten stronger, has gotten closer to God, and is healed and is helping those that are broken, those that have gone through the same thing. Do you understand what I'm saying? But like I said, there's an order to it. God's not going to go against our free will. It's just not going to happen. It's not what he wants to do. It's not the order of things. So a lot of times people have this big issue when you say submit to God or obey God or walk in obedience. And if you have a problem with the word obedience and obey, then you have to check your pride. You have to check something that's going on in you. If that word makes you cringe, if the word submission, to submit to God, to submit to your husband or whatever the case may be, if that word makes you cringe, there's something going on in you. There's a pride issue going on with you. There's something that's within you that is preventing you from accepting such a thing that does not mean that you're being trampled on, that you're being suppressed or oppressed or anything like that, right? So I'm saying that to say that there is an order to things, and submitting to God and obeying to God, there is nothing. If God is submitting to the order of things, then he's showing me that I can submit to the order of things. There is an order to things, whether you like it or not. Whether you want to hear the word obedience or to obey, whether you want to hear about submitting, whether you want that, there is a beauty in just dropping your pride and everything in you and then serving somebody and serving God and submitting to God's will and obeying his will and his word. But if you think that not obeying him is, or obeying him is this horrible thing, you're obeying something. Trust and believe, whether you believe it or not. You are submitting to something, right? And the things that God is asking us to do are good. They're good things for us. They're not to hurt us, right? So it's just interesting how our obedience to God can just make such a world of difference between generations. You know what I mean? And so I as I was just getting all this information, all this feedback from God and just listening to him, and I just started to realize, like, man, this thing is so much bigger than us. Even with all the billions of people in this world today, this thing that God has us in, that we are living, this thing is so much bigger than even all of us that are on this world. It's so much bigger than this little world that you live in, that I live in. It's so much bigger than me, than just you. It's so much bigger than the little territory that we are given. It's so much bigger than that. It's so much bigger than what I look like. It's so much bigger than my feelings. It's so much bigger than how I feel. It's so much bigger than how I look. It's so much bigger than what the world says about me. It's so much bigger than that. When I look at the bigger picture, these things that we fight about are so small. But I get it, because we are the ones living in it, right? But the reality is they are so small in comparison to what we are really doing on this earth. It is so small compared to the spiritual aspect of things, to the spiritual order of things. Like I said, there is order. There is an order to things, whether you want to believe it, receive it, accept it or not. There is an order to things. I am just glad that I have chosen to fall in line with the order of things in terms of life and prosperity, in terms of God's will. And the only thing that I can do, because I understand, because he's shown me how much bigger this thing is, and it just makes me I'm so small in comparison to it all. I'm so small in comparison to all that God has planned for us, for this world. God is such a beautiful mystery, and I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of what it is that he has planned. I'm not afraid of that thing, that the spiritual aspect of everything. I'm not afraid of it. I understand that it is a beautiful, beautiful mystery to God, that all these things are mysteries, and we're not going to understand every single thing. There's no way these little minds that we have can totally wrap around what's really going on. But like I said, God has shown me that there is an order, and even he submits to order, and he expects his children to submit to order and understand that there is order and there is consequences depending on what side of the spectrum you decide to walk. There's consequences. There are benefits. There are side effects. Whatever you want to call it, right? But it is what it is. And so this thing is so much bigger than us. And knowing what I know, I just don't want to not say what I know, or not try to help someone else to understand how much bigger this thing is, so that they can do better, so that they can prevent their children's children and children, all these other generations, from going through things that we have the power today. God is giving us the power today to demolish, right? He's giving us this power. We need to use it. I don't want my children and their children going through what I went through growing up, what my mother went through growing up, what generationally, what we've experienced in our bloodline. I don't want them having to deal with that. I just don't. So anything that I can do to try to make sure that I do my part today in this domain, in this small time frame that I have, because we all have a really small time frame of being here. And so whatever I can do in this small little bit amount of time, that I have here on this earth, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it like I want to do it. I want God. I want my relationship with him. I want to do these things. There is no one dragging me along. There's no one, he's not strong arming me. He's not saying, if you don't do it, I'm going to do this. No, I want to. So anyways, I just had to get that off my chest and everything. And I got to go back and get my greens off the stove. So have a great day. And if you have any questions, let me know. Bye.